with great power comes great responsibility and oftentimes some very crippling weaknesses. Many of us have heard some of the classic stories about how people have fallen prey to not really understanding what it is that AI is doing and going into a courtroom and presenting cases that have never happened. So what is it about superpowers versus kryptonite, and why did you choose this particular mental model and analogy to help people understand AI in a better, deeper, and more Centaurian way?
Look, one of the key things which I was trying to find the right analogy for was I realized that if you were very skilled at a task, like, for me, creativity, programming, research, like there's a number of different topics where I am off the charts. I'm really skilled in it. I've spent a lifetime doing a lot of these things. Like how you should use AI when this is your superpower already is very different than using AI when this is something you're not great at. So one of the things, and like you said, there's a lot of people out there who are using AI for the things that they don't like doing. They're not good at doing, they don't want to do, or don't think humans are. And this is, understanding, those areas which are your kryptonite. But this analogy goes a little bit further, because here's the underlying piece of that worst of times is there's a lot of people out there who don't understand what this idea of superpowers is. So if you think of somebody like Superman, generative AI is now going to give anybody, especially if you're willing to pay $20 a month to one of these providers, is going to give that power to anybody. And you can get to above average. So now everyone is going to have the same superpowers as Superman. But guess what? You're not on Earth anymore. You're actually back on Krypton, which is where we're heading. So when you're Superman with superpowers and everyone has it, that's Krypton. And what does it mean on Krypton? It means absolutely nothing, because everybody has the same superpowers. But this is where, the DC universe versus Marvel, what I loved about what Marvel did to bust Batman's and Superman's dominance of superheroes was they came up with so many different superheroes with superpowers, mutant powers. This is what we need to do, because one of the things I love about mutant powers is they tap into something unique about us. So if you're trying to work out, what is your superpowers and being able to use AI in the right way to get a competitive advantage, you need to find that sort of true superpowers, which is beyond what everybody else has. So you want to lean into the things you're really skilled at. You want to get really skilled at more and more things. You want to learn more diverse things to become that unique superhero with superpowers, which is augmented by this AI, not just everyone's a Superman on Krypton.
So maybe you can help ground folks a little bit here on Earth and help us avoid thinking in systems and falling prey to the kryptonite.
Look, at some level, there's a lot of things which, you decide that this is something I don't want to become an expert at. I only need it for a certain amount of things. It's not my jam. And this is where you go to system 3 first, and then you think about it. It is important to do that last step to make sure you don't fall prey. You don't end up in court presenting cases which never existed. But this idea, look, law is not my thing, especially contract law. And I have to do this and look at contracts every now and again. So using a GPT to just have a quick look at this, give me all the things I have to look at. It gives me enough, makes me smart enough that I can ask the right questions and bring a lawyer in as needed. These are the people with the superpowers. Look, so use system 3 first, and then make sure you're bringing that rational thinking. Look, theoretically, this could be a topic. Eventually, if you start using it more and more, you might go, hey, I probably need to understand more about this. I should go and learn about it. But this is how, if something's a kryptonite for you, that you're okay if you're average or the same as everybody else. Look, there's going to be a lot of skills, a lot of things out there, which is going to get the level playing field. And just understand that it's okay to go to system 3, but make sure you're really thinking about system 1, system 2.
Right. And one of the keys here is that intellectual humility and that honesty with yourself. When you look at the underlying bell curve, if you know in your heart, in your mind, that you're below average in something, this is where system 3 can really benefit you, as you just talked through. And then when you are, as you said, off the charts, and you are on the right side of that bell curve. And on the right side, not to say it's the correct side, but on the right side when you're looking at the standard distribution, this is where AI can really give you superpowers.
And look, when you take that unique skill, that thing which you can do, which nobody else can do, this is how to use AI. So first of all, there's a lot of people out there who go, hey, look, I'm really good at this. I'm not going to use AI. Or they use it in a very simplistic fashion and go, hey, this can't help me. Look, I did a lot of research on neuroscience, understanding how motivational system works, and built out this whole framework around game design. But guess what? When I tried to use AI at the start to help me synthesize that information, it actually, dumbed it down and took the average, which is out there. We'll get to this in a second, but basically, like, it did not understand my deep knowledge. So we had to really work with it to be able to get it to be able to do things. But guess what? It pushed me to go, hang on a minute. I don't need AI to give me answers in this scenario because I'm really skilled. I'm really knowledgeable. So this is where I spend most of the time in system 1 and system 2, incubating, ideating, pulling knowledge up, thinking about something, and then using AI, system 3, and potentially refining it afterwards. So this is where, this is a superpower of yours. This is this unique mutant ability that you have, or something you've trained, hyper trained over, decades of your life to do. You want to be system 1, system 2 first before you go to a system 3.
Think first, prompt later when it's a superpower. And speaking of those superpowers in Kryptonite, well, much like our brains, LLMs have certain superpowers in Kryptonite. And I love that you put this concept in this slide in this section and not in the section about what is AI, because when it comes to understanding how to think with machines, as you said, it's the human and the machine. It's the symbiosis. It's understanding what your superpowers in Kryptonite are. And here you've got a chance to help folks understand a little bit more about what the large language model superpowers in Kryptonite look like and are.
Look, this is a great, sort of visualization. Stephen Wolfram wrote this amazing little book explaining it. He wrote a paper on it, and he had these amazing visualizations. And this is one of his, which is this idea of what's happening underneath. What is the mental model that the LLM has, right? So this is a model of something called semantic space. So all of these things are connected, similar to an associative network, and different topics are sort of clustered in different areas. So a large language model, which has been trained on all this corpus of information from the internet, creates this large sort of semantic web of information. So when you ask it something, you prompt it, it goes to a particular part of that network to pull out, the next word, eventually sort of building up sentence and building up knowledge from it. A great example of this is an early prompt hack, which people were talking about, was when you wanted to do something, go, hey, play the role of a contract lawyer and review this contract. What is it actually doing? It just goes, like, by saying play a role. It doesn't like it knows how to play a role or knows exactly what a contract lawyer is. It just finds and navigates that part of this complex semantic web and be able to pull all that information out of it. Here's the other piece which you have to understand. This is a multi-dimensional semantic space. This is really complex, large language models. But guess what? You also have something similar in your own brains. But this mental model allows you to start thinking about this in a very particular way. So,
and as you said, it is multidimensional. We can't yet represent, the fourth or fifth dimension on a PowerPoint slide, but at least we've got 3 dimensions. So here it seems like you're blending some of these superpowers in Kryptonite. So help us understand this view and this visualization, this way of looking at the elephant.
Look, one of the key things as I think about it's Kryptonite. So when you've got a large language model, you have to understand what it's been trained on. So the sort of the rudimentary sort of idea, the rubric I ask people to think about is like, if you could Google this and found a video or a great blog post or a listicle or something about 5 years ago, there's a good chance that this is already in here. So when you're asking an LLM to do something, you're on pretty good ground if you're asking it something which you probably could have bubbled up and searched and Googled and found some YouTube on it. But if you're asking it something which has never really, had exposure to, it'll probably hallucinate. It probably is going to be fairly shallow. And, it's hard to actually be able to, find out what it's actually pulling from most of the time. These sources, it's not aware of its sources. So, that understand the kryptonite. There's this great example with ChatGPT Pro, which dropped, which is this amazingly powerful new sort of OpenAI sort of model. It's far more expensive, $200 a month. But here's where the piece which got really fascinating. So not only was there a whole bunch of people running around basically going, hey, it only works for PhD level problems. Yeah, it's really good. You don't need it. That's not true. It's actually for anybody who has superpowers in a particular area, you should be using Pro because it is amazing. But there was this great example, and there was a lot of people going, ha ha, see, it's not very smart. Somebody put a musical score into a picture of a musical score into Pro and asked it questions, and it hallucinated, claiming that it was something which it wasn't. And he was going, see, Pro isn't very smart. But here's the thing. Just because you can put a crossword puzzle in there, it can put programming in there, you can put mathematics in there, take photos, you can put a general ledger in there and it can work it out. It's been trained on all of those different things. It's very unlikely, and it hasn't been trained on musical scores yet. It wasn't something which is a high priority for OpenAI or any of these other technologies. So testing it on something it has never done, it's like testing me on musical scores. Look, I started playing music and reading music when I was 12 years old. I'm not the person to be able to recognize it. So it is not my jam. It is definitely not my superpower. So understanding the strengths and weaknesses, this is where you have to think about a large language model and understand where the superpowers and kryptonites are.